Hello, this is Laura and welcome to the Learning Reading Hub. Okay, so for today's video, I'm going to be assuming that you have a beginner reader at home, you're teaching him or her how to read, and you've done a lot of research, you're doing all the right things, you're teaching letter sounds in the right way, A for apple, B for ball, not ba, M for mat, not ma, you're using great phonics materials, maybe decodable books, and suddenly your child has to read this apparently simple word and he gets all confused. The word is am, as in I am Laura. She can't figure out the word and you go, come on, that's easy for you. Am. And probably your child looks at you all confused saying, I thought A said ah. And you go like, yeah, what do you mean? That's exactly it. Am. Well, your child may have better ears than yourself. Listen. Am.
I am seeing the Taj Mahal.
I am not a dairy farmer. We're going to pretend like I am unfamiliar with...
Welcome to Glut Sounds or welded sounds. Let's talk about them and other confusing sounds that you may need or may not need to teach your beginner reader. Let's go. So when the letter A comes before the letters N or M, the sound comes through the nose, so it changes a little. It looks like the nasal consonant sounds, both and N are nasal consonant sounds, meaning that the air flows through the nose, sort of takes over the sound of the letter A, changing it, distorting it. And that is why we have the impression that these sounds are sort of glued together, hence the name Glut Sounds. The intensity of the distortion, though, depends a great deal on your accent. I believe some American English speakers, especially in certain regions of the US, distort this sound a lot. I don't believe the distortion is so evident, for instance, in standard British English. Here in Australia, I can hear this distortion quite clearly, but not in everybody. I'm not sure if this varies among the different regions in Australia, but what I know for sure is that where I live, I can hear a mix. For instance, I can hear some people talking about Santa Claus, and some people talking about Santa Claus.
I actually do Santa Claus for Christmas.
Also, there's no Santa Claus.
Another interesting proof that I found in my own house about this distortion, how real it is and how children can really hear it, is this note that my youngest daughter wrote to her big sister because she wanted to sleep in her bed that night and she said no. It says, I am sad and mad. Notice how she wrote am, E-M. Also notice how she wrote the word and over here, E-D, because that's the spelling that makes sense for her based on the sounds that she could hear. Okay, I know you're probably caught up now with the sleep in her bed part. Yes, they do that sometimes. My little one is really scared of the dark. She's always looking for company at night. It's a real problem actually, but anyway, story for another day. Let's come back to welded sounds. Okay, so you now know the reason why an apparently simple word such as am can be problematic. But should we teach welded sounds or glut sounds explicitly to all children? In my opinion, if you can avoid it, if this distortion is not so evident in your accent, in the way you speak, don't teach it. It adds up to the cognitive load your child will have to deal with. And look, you're probably at the very beginning of their reading journey, so better keep things as simple as possible. We're going to have to teach them many other things already, digraphs, R-control vowels, vowel teams. So my personal preference is, yes, be very explicit, of course, but also as minimalist as possible, especially with young children that are starting out. But this is something, of course, for you to know, to keep in mind, and to reveal to your child, to your student, if you see is causing confusion, okay? And of course, when you switch your focus to spelling, it's super useful, of course, to know the root cause behind these mistakes, so you can speak about them with your children, with your students, knowing exactly why they are happening. But remember, we're talking about beginner readers in this video. By the way, when we talk about welded sounds or glut sounds, many people only talk about these and these. In these groups of letters, the individual sound of each letter can't be so clearly heard. They are glued, okay, remember? Even though this is very much accent dependent as well, I've heard some British English speakers, for instance, that clearly pronounce the g sound in words like sing or strong. They say sing, strong. So you can't really talk about glut sounds with them here at all. Some people also include the all sounds here: tall, small, full, mole, call. I prefer to talk about spelling patterns here. Why? Well, while the letter L seems to be responsible for distorting the sound of the letter A in these words, trying to sort of glue it to its own sound, sort of, the problem is that the letter L doesn't always distort the sound of the preceding A in the same way, plus sometimes it goes in silent mode. Think of palm, balm, almond, or think of calf, half. Did you hear the L? No. Is it the same sound as in fall, mole, small, tall? No, it isn't. So that is why I prefer to talk about spelling patterns here. Okay, let's move on now from glut sounds to other confusing sounds in English you don't need to teach your child, your beginner reader, unless you have to. The letter S making the Z sound. This is extremely common in English. It happens so often. I could go ahead and explain when it happens, why it happens, what the rules are, but it's not relevant for today's video. I wouldn't bother explaining them anyway to a beginner reader. It's way too complex. Sorry in advance for the different feel of the video from now on. I had technical problems while recording, so I had to stop the video and change to a different camera. So, the sounds S and Z are basically the same sound. The only difference is that S is unvoiced, meaning that our vocal cords do not vibrate when we say this sound, and Z is voiced, meaning that our vocal cords vibrate when we say this sound. You can feel the vibration on your throat, so if you place your hand on your throat like this and you say Z, you'll feel the vibration. If you say you won't feel anything. So go ahead and try it if you want to. Anyway, I have been able to get away with my children sounding out these words like this. Is, his, without asking any questions or raising any eyebrows. Look, at some point, you'll probably need to teach your child that the sound S can be represented by the letter S in English because it's so common, it happens so many times. But if you can get away with not telling this at the beginning, go for it. Let's keep it as simple and minimalist as possible. Another confusing sound that children will be confronted with over and over, but normally later in their learn to read journey, when they are starting to read two-syllable words, is the schwa sound. If you want to learn more about the schwa sound, how to teach it, how to approach this sound, this is the video to watch next.